My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse. I talk about books and book-related things, and today I am going to be telling you about what I would consider the best books that I read in 2021. I want to give my regular disclaimers that if you hear animal sounds, I live in a zoo and have no control over the sounds that they make, and also, this is not where I normally film. I normally film in that chair over there. The reason I'm not filming there is because I don't want to. The lighting is better here, and it is very hot over there when I open that window. It's not hot over here when this window's open. I don't know how air works, but that is the case. So, here we are. I'm just gonna go ahead and get right into it. If you guys like this video, you can go ahead and like and subscribe and share it. I will be posting my least favorite or aka the worst books of 2021 next week on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard, so you have that to look forward to. Let's go ahead and get this show on the road though. The best book that I read this year, hands down, is, and I'm saying this mostly because I continue to read it as a comfort read, is Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. Roger and Dodger are twins that were separated at birth and are being observed by this kind of secret society who are essentially trying to make gods of some kind, but Roger and Dodger don't know that about themselves just yet. So it's sort of this very complicated story of like time travel and being really good with numbers and math in ways that they shouldn't be, and really good with language in ways that they shouldn't be, and somehow managing to communicate with each other in each other's minds, even though they lived far apart from each other because they're, you know, separated at birth and adopted into different families. I just really love this book, and I'm very excited for the sequel. It is just, it's a book I think about constantly, and that's why it's what I'm gonna consider the best book that I've read this year. Next up on the list, from this point on, they're not in any order at all. Next up on the list is Surrender Your Sons by Adam Sass. I want to give a huge content warning for this book, but it's a horror book that is placed in a conversion therapy camp, or I guess a thriller book placed in a conversion therapy camp. Connor's mom sends him away to this conversion therapy camp, Nightlight Ministries, and things start to go left when a kid is he's killed, and several of the campers are planning on escaping, and you've got, you know, trans characters and queer characters and so on. It's very dark and very emotional, especially if you have a religious background, which I do, especially if that religious background happened to have family members telling you they would not ever want queer leaders in the church, and you were a leader in the church like I do. You know, that kind of thing. It's a little bit triggering, but I will say that just the storyline as a whole was fascinating, and I also really appreciated the way that we discussed even the things that happen after conversion therapy when it doesn't work, because it doesn't work, and the way that forgiveness can and can't work for some people. I liked the open dialogue of those different ways of viewing very different situations for each individual and their experiences with something like this, and I appreciated that. Next on the list, we have A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers. This is the first in the Monk and Robot, I think, series. It is about a monk who is a tea monk and serves tea to people and, you know, helps them with their problems, and most of all listens to them. Robots have been gone for quite a long time, and this tea monk is really determined to hear crickets, and so they wander off into this forest to hear crickets, and they find a robot. And just, it's a very short novella. It made me almost cry at the end though, so it's just a really emotionally touching story, and I don't know how else to explain it, but it touched me, and it was really well written, and Becky Chambers does a fantastic job of writing these kinds of stories where it's sci-fi with very new aspects to it, but it's still got some kind of emotional side of it that makes you really think about things, and I appreciated that from her, or from them. Next, we have Iron Widow by Ziran J. Zhao. I'm sorry if I said their name incorrectly. Y'all know. Y'all knew this book was going to be on my list. It is very much Avatar: The Last Airbender meets giant mechas meets all of all of the things in fantasy sci-fi books that I love, with a absolutely fucking unapologetically feral female main character, which we don't get a lot of, and a polyamorous romance match, which we also don't get a lot of. I appreciated this book so much for the way that it addressed those things and how it was kind of unapologetically itself. It's very brutal and to the point, and it's fast-paced and fun, and it is a book that I have read twice in 1 year and really enjoyed it both times, so I highly recommend it. The audiobook is also incredible. After that, we have the entire Cute Mutants series by S.J. Whitby. Admittedly, I did not read the first ones this year. That was definitely last year, but several of the books that came out this year are in my top contenders for the year, and as I'm continuing to read books that haven't quite been published yet by SJ, this series continues to be something that's front of mind for me and very highly rated and recommended from me. I enjoy the way that there is different representation as well as addressing different political standpoints without it becoming something that's too heavy or too hard to read given our current times. I think that SJ does a really fantastic job of interweaving the fictional with the facts, and I just really enjoy the books a lot. I love our main characters of all of the different books and the spin-offs, and I can't wait to continue to experience this universe growing, and I hope that you guys give it a chance as well and read it as well. Then we have The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. This is a horror thriller. It's kind of a atmospheric horror, but things do go left and get real gory the further in that we go. This book is about Jane Lawrence, who marries a doctor or surgeon, and she's never supposed to be staying at his house, but she ends up staying at his house, and things get really weird really fast, and I don't think I can explain how without ruining the book. It is very, Victorian era spooky ghost story, but things are not as what they always seem. Occultism, all of that. It's all of those things with a fantastic femme main character, which Caitlin Starling always does a fantastic job of writing them. And the book pins that I got for pre-ordering this book are amazing because they have actual real thread like from the book cover, and I thought that that was fantastically well done. Then we have Darling by Kay Ankrum. This is I almost said Winnie the Pooh, and it's definitely not Winnie the Pooh. This is a Peter Pan retelling. This is a horror thriller Peter Pan retelling. There is no magic in this book. It is contemporary in that it is not in the fictional Peter Pan world, it is in our world, and it is fucked up. I do love me a Peter Pan retelling in which we really make Peter Pan an asshole, because Peter Pan is an asshole, he sucks, and I really like when we keep to that concept because it is who he is. This book is about a dangerous night where one Wendy goes off with a Peter Pan and things go left field, and she finds herself with possibly a serial killer, maybe not, who knows, and the lost all of it, the way that Kay Ankrum did the interweaving of the elements from Peter Pan, the fantastical elements from Peter Pan, and made them into less fantasy and more reality was just so cool. She did such a cool job with that. The story made me nauseous, not because of any kind of gore, but because I was so stressed out, and I think about it still. It's one of those books that I keep thinking about. Next, we have They Never Learned by Lane Fargo. You guys know this is one of my favorite books. It is a sapphic thriller. Our main character is a lesbian professor, or queer professor at the very least, who kills men who have been accused of sexual assault. There are dual points of views, and I can't even tell you about the twist because it will ruin the book for you, but I did include it in my readathon this year because that's how much I enjoyed it. It was narrator's favorite book in the readathon side quest because it is one of my favorite books, and I play narrator and it fit the character, so here we are. Then we have The Witch King by H.E. Edgman. This book is so fun. It is everything that I feel like things like The Folk of the Air and the Court of Thorns and Roses series. It's what those books could have been if they had been more diverse and written better. To be fair, ACOTAR is written not in modern day, but if it was written in modern day, essentially Wyatt is in a fae kingdom and is betrothed to a prince, but this is prior to Wyatt's transitioning. Wyatt loses all of his magic and flees the fae kingdom, but the prince comes and finds him, and is like, hey, we have to save the Fey Kingdom and make it work, and Wyatt is like, absolutely the fuck not, even no. And Immer, the prince, is like, no, even though you're trans, we're gonna make this work. And Wyatt is like, I have no interest in this. And it is all the fairy politics that so many of the fairy stories have, and it's all of the fairy elements that so many of the fairy stories have, but it's done in such a way that it was just a really fucking good story. The pacing is done really, really well, and our characters are all, the ones who are supposed to be likable are likable, and the ones who are not supposed to be likable are not likable, and there isn't any kind of like gray area about that. Like, you just really, it's just such an enjoyable book that you sit down and you read it all in one setting. And my last book of my top 10 books for the year is going to be The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. This is not a book I would generally have as my top 10, and I was trying to validate it to art, but it's hard to explain why I love this book so much. This book is a sci-fi dystopian in which we follow two different people. One of them is trapped on this island and can't seem to get off, and every time she dreams she finds herself trying to go into the ocean, even like sleepwalking. And the other is about a girl whose sister has gone missing and is dead, presumed dead, and the planet is literally dying, and her trying to find a solution to this while dealing with the selfishness that is human nature. I think about this book constantly. The writing was just so beautifully well done, and I've listened to the audiobook, and I've read the physical book, and I read the ARC. I've read this book almost 3 times this year. I'm just obsessed with it. I love this book, and I have such a hard time explaining why, because it doesn't fit any of the narratives of books that I enjoy. There isn't any feral main characters, there isn't queer characters, there isn't any of those things, but there's just something about it that is just so enjoyable to me. And the twist in the end really fucks you up. And I loved that too. So, you know, those are my top 10 books of 2021. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you didn't enjoy this video, let me know in the comments down below how I can make it better, although I do only post these, you know, once a year. And stay tuned, because next week I will be posting what I would consider the worst books of 2021. I hope that you guys are having a great day. Don't forget to take your meds, drink your water, and do something today to, you know, a little extra for yourself. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, thanks, bye.